Well, don't forget the golden rule, treat others as you want to be treated.
Sound off like you got a pair.
Sir, yes, sir!
Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit.
What was that, Jim? Who was that? Les Crane? Hey, folks, welcome back. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. We're transitioning now to Daily Mail. I tell you, though, if you listen to our last guest on American Warrior, it was the That Others May Live Foundation, and their specialty is supporting the families of rescue personnel who have been killed in the line of duty or injured in the line of duty. In 3 weeks, it will be 1 year since I lost my mother. Now, I've been around. I've had quite a bit of experience. I've probably got more years behind me than ahead of me. I've had a very full life, but I've also witnessed a lot of death. I've experienced what it's like to mourn in several different cultures in Mexico with the Sioux Indians up on the reservation. I've buried friends, co-workers, soldiers, policemen, grandparents, uncles, and less than a year ago, actually buried or was part of the memorial service for the man who established this radio program, a good friend, collaborator, and mentor, Dave Sitton. In 3 weeks, 1 year, it'll be 3 weeks ago that my family and I were sitting in the lobby of University Medical Center. My mother had collapsed and was in intensive care. But the doctor assured us that the surgery would take care of things. They'd insert a couple of stents and she'd be well and out of the hospital soon. Well, I remember sitting there in that reception room and I heard a woman in Spanish and she was wailing. And she was screaming, no es posible, no lo creo, which basically a translation is her, I don't believe it, that can't be real. And her anguish was primal. And I couldn't see her, but I had a sense, I knew the news that she had gotten. I knew that she had just lost a family member. And I remember thinking, you know what? There but for the grace of God go I. Well, a couple hours later, my family and I found ourselves in those very same woman's shoes. We were the ones receiving that final and irrevocable, it's not my first language, that news that my mother had actually passed. I had a hard time struggling to believe it. Within about a week, I was talking to a gentleman who I respect, a warrior, who over 2 decades of service had seen a lot of death and had lost a lot of friends and co-workers, and he shared some advice with me. He said that 5 years prior to that, when his father passed away, he hadn't properly grieved, and later on in his life, that came up and kind of bit him in the bottom. And he told me, he says, I can't tell you how to grieve, but I can assure you that if you don't do it now, you'll regret it later. You have to deal with it now. Now, as I said, I'm a grown man. I've dealt with a lot of things, but I can't imagine going through what I'm going through now as a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old or a 16-year-old. So today on Daily Mail, we're joined by 2 representatives of Camp Aaron. It's the nation's largest network of free bereavement camps for children and teens. And Carla Velasquez, who is a support specialist for Tunidito Children and Family Services, is with us here in the studio on Daily Mail. Carla, welcome.
Thank you.
Now, your group was featured. What really brought my attention to this was the Camp Aaron was featured on a recent documentary on HBO called One Last Hug.
Correct.
And I tell you what, folks, you can find it. I challenge anyone out there to watch this program and not get choked up. But, Carla, tell us a little bit about the background of the organization and how it came to be and what Camp Aaron does.
Sure. So, Tunidito Children and Family Services just started kind of partnering with Camp Aaron, who offers these bereavement camps across the U.S. And last year was our first Camp Aaron, and our Camp Aaron is called Tucson Phoenix. So we serve both children in Tucson, Arizona, and Phoenix, Arizona as well. Last year, we ended up with about 70 campers who attended.
I'm sorry, 70? 70?
Yes, 70.
And that's statewide?
That is statewide, of course. And we expect that to be much larger this year. Last year, our camp was up in Prescott, Arizona, and we took the kids for a 3-day weekend from Friday through Sunday and did regular camp activities, but at the same time worked a lot through our grief and did special ceremonies and special activities to really focus on that.
And you were here in studio, and you I was struggling with the introduction, but I think it's important for people to know that because all of us are children. even when we're not children anymore, we will always be children to our parents.
Mm-hmm.
And when you lose a close family member, it's very different. It's very powerful.
Yes.
And that's how long has Tucson or Southern Arizona or Arizona as a whole had a Camp Aaron program?
Last year was our first year. Camp Aaron used to be in Arizona. I believe it was 2003, but it only served Phoenix kids. And this year we're really focusing on Tucson and Phoenix.
Okay. Now, through the miracle of technology, we're also joined on the phone by one of the co-founders of Camp Aaron. A little bit of background here. Karen and her husband Jamie Moyer, is a major league pitcher, won 267 games, 24 major league seasons, an all-star World Series champion. And Karen, you may not want to, let's just say apparently he is the oldest pitcher in the history of the game to throw a shutout. But you were a child bride, is that right, Karen?
Yeah, and he was the oldest to win a game and the oldest to get a hit and the oldest to get an RBI. I was starting to feel old with all those headlines, but I am actually the founder of the camp, and I could not be more excited to be on the radio with you guys today, bragging on our camp in Tucson. We're so excited to be serving two populations of kids in different areas from Phoenix and Tucson. And, 2003 is a long time ago, so Phoenix was one of our first expansions after we had started it in the Northwest. I'm physically at my Camp Aaron in Orange County, California right now.
Oh, wow.
So if you hear a little background noise, it's the kids playing. It's our closing ceremonies, and the parents are coming to get their kids. And there's always a little bit of anxiety, I imagine, for the parents as they're wondering what kind of child they're picking up, because certainly a lot of them that they dropped off were very nervous to be here. And so as I'm talking to you guys, I can describe to you what I'm witnessing here in the background, and the parents are walking up now to meet their kids. And I've been here all day witnessing these children embracing each other and knowing through their counselors what they've accomplished this weekend in coping skills and learning how to comfort each other and themselves, and obviously they're all healing.
Well, and Karen, thanks so much for joining us on the phone. I thought you'd be calling from the comfort of an office in Seattle, but no, you're actually, God bless you for being out there doing what you do. We've got just about 2 minutes before our first commercial break, Karen, but if you tell us a little bit about the background, how you and your husband, what you experienced that inspired you to start the Moyer Foundation and as part of that Camp Aaron.
Right. So the Moyer Foundation started in the year 2000, and that was really because I was concerned about donors trusting, where money was going to go if we were doing a fundraiser, say, with Jamie's team. So without much of a game plan, we started our foundation. We put together amazing staff, and then expanded. We're going to be 14 years old, and what we really focused on was children in distress. So I feel very educated on hundreds of different kinds of distress that a child can be in. And then we became experts, obviously, in grief, with our grief camps that are now 45 strong throughout the United States and Canada. And then we have our Camp Mariposa, which is for children ages 9 to 12 who live with addiction in their families. Camp Aaron's story happened from a Make-A-Wish appearance that Jamie was asked to do for a 15-year-old girl from Seattle. Her name was Erin, and she was battling cancer. Sadly, at the age of 17, she lost her life, and she had two older sisters. And I was just sharing with the kids at Camp Aaron, Orange County, about Erin. And it's so cute because they're all like, you knew Erin? Like, she's this hero figure. So I typically call our parents after and share that with them, because certainly Erin's spirit lives on at each of our camps. So Camp Aaron is a grief camp. You probably said this, for children ages 6 to 17 who grieve the loss of a loved one.
Well, and yeah, again, I don't know if you're able to hear the introduction, but basically I was talking about how we all, that's such a powerful change in all of our lives, regardless of age. And I'm struggling with the loss of my mother not quite a year ago, and I just can't imagine, well, thank you. And I just can't imagine what it would be like to be a young person and to deal with that. So, hey, listen, Karen, hopefully you can stick with us. We'll be right back. We're going to take a short break. I'm joined by Karen Moyer, who is the founder of the Moyer Foundation Camp Aaron, on the phone from Orange County, and also in the studio, Carla Velasquez, who is with Tunidito Foundation here in Tucson. We're talking about Camp Aaron and grieving. Stick around, folks. Great program. Welcome back, folks. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia, Daily Mail Radio. We're talking about grief, and I just want to, all of us, when we enter this life, there's only one way out. Not to make that sound quite as depressing as it did, but we're all children, and when you lose someone close to you, it doesn't matter how old you are, that's a very, very difficult thing to deal with. And we're talking today with the founder of Camp Aaron, which is the nation's largest network of child bereavement camps. We're also joined in the studio by Carla Vasquez, who's with a local agency here named Tunidito that runs the Arizona portion of Camp Aaron. And on the phone with us, we've got Karen Moyer, who is the founder of the Moyer Foundation and Camp Aaron. And Karen, I before you were able to join us, HBO did a documentary recently called One Last Hug. And I challenge anyone, the Grinch could watch this documentary and get teared up. I mean, is that powerful? Because it's that powerful of an issue that your foundation is helping to address.
Yes, indeed. That's a project I fought because I did not want to. When you lose editing rights, you don't know what's going to happen, and I was worried about exploiting the children. One Last Hug is phenomenal. I love it every time I watch it because it's so not Hollywood. It is so our camps, and I imagine, Carla, you guys would use it for your counselors. We use it to comfort parents sending their kids. Obviously, I use it to show to potential donors because it is free camp, and it's very real. And every time I've done a premiere around One Last Hug, I've warned the audience that if you've suffered a loss, note to self that your healing may begin and you may find yourself pretty emotional. And that happened indeed over and over. So very happy about the documentary. It can be found on HBO Go, on demand, and we're excited.
And I'll tell you, one of the most powerful images that I really had trouble with in looking at your website was the image of your husband. When Aaron passed away shortly thereafter, he actually put her initials on his cleats and then also on the pitcher's mound when he pitched that game. And just without a word, that image, I think, communicated you and your husband's commitment to this issue, and just the fact that you're really fulfilling Aaron's wishes of wanting to continue to working to help kids who are in a tough situation like she was. Or I should say like her siblings were, of course.
Well, yeah, I think actually that scene happens in another piece that was done on ESPN. That's the E60 piece.
Correct.
Yeah, the One Last Hug is not anything Karen and Jamie or Aaron, quite honestly, except in some words. Yeah, the commitment, are you kidding me? We're parents of 8 children. I love children. Obviously, Jamie does that Make-A-Wish. He may walk away just because he's busy and gets other requests like that. So for me, meeting and making friends with Erin and her family has been a lifelong journey, and obviously leaving behind a legacy of Erin in these 45 camps that grow every year is pretty remarkable. It's a silver lining.
Now, tell us a little bit about the need, because it's one of those things that it happens to everyone, but I never really stop to just think about it. But what is the need out there? That I thought I saw somewhere that 1 out of 5 children are going to experience a loss of a close family member while they're still children.
Yeah, before the age of 18, and there's 1.5 million kids today who grieve a loss. I don't know the specifics in the Tucson, Phoenix area. Maybe Carla does, but thousands of kids are grieving the loss of a parent and then a loved one, and sometimes even multiple. I had, campers here that have lost both parents or lost grandparents, and it doesn't matter, how how you lose a loved one or what loved one. What matters is that you talk about it and you give it conversation. And Carla, you could probably talk about why that's important and what happens to kids if they don't.
Go ahead, Carla.
Definitely. I know for Tunidita we offer bereavement support groups that meet twice a month, but really in this camp, I know last year we saw this a lot with a lot of the kids. It was the first time ever since their special person had died, that they were really talking about it. And it was a really powerful and emotional moment. For a lot of them, they didn't know how to react. A lot of physical reactions came about, and it was almost confusing for them because it was really the first time that they had ever done it. So it's definitely important to meet other people and know that these kids are not alone.
Well, and that's an important part of the issue and about what you guys do is that so often as an adult, there's lots of places I can seek help. And frankly, at my age, there's others around me, my peers who have experienced a loss as well. But if I'm a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old, I might be looking around my classroom at school, and I'm the only one. And, who do you turn to? How do you start dealing with those emotions?
Exactly. And we hear that coming from the kids themselves. They say that all the time. I feel like I'm alone. I feel like no one understands me. And then they come and they meet all these other kids who are in that same situation as them, and it's a beautiful thing to really witness and see them support each other and feel like they're not alone anymore.
Now, Karen, as you mentioned, you were in Orange County now at one of the camps. How many do you try and get around and visit these camps personally as much as possible?
Yeah, it's one of my most favorite things to do. I brought one of my daughters with me today because it always takes time away from the family. I've been traveling quite a bit around the HBO thing and lobbying in D.C. and finding money. We just had a big event in Seattle, so I wear a lot of hats in all that I do, but for me, there's nothing that I love to do more than to, get on the kids' level and to hear their story and find out how they found out about camp and what they love about camp and virtually watch the counselors and the relationships that they've created. I'm going to get to at least 25 of my camps this summer, both camps. I've decided to write some children's books, a series of books around addiction separately and grief, and maybe there'll be more useful tools for kids, whether they're my campers or kids dealing with these issues.
And Karen, tell us about the structure of the camp. I think when people hear a bereavement camp, they may get a certain image in their mind, but in effect, these camps are almost like any other summer camp, but with the added benefit of helping the children deal with this issue, most importantly, among other peers, other people who are experiencing it. And some of the scenes that I think where a child is standing up and talking about their loss and the faces of the other kids, you can just see it in their face, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the first person to deal with. There is help. There's other people that can understand.
Yeah, that's one of the first things the campers say is that I'm not alone. And it really does become a safe environment to talk about it. Think about it. Sometimes if it's a parent and it's, a very fragile situation at home, they're afraid to even laugh and have fun. So not only can they laugh and have fun, but I had a little girl who said, I realized at camp that it's okay to cry. And so what's beautiful in the age difference is you've got the littles inspiring the bigs and vice versa. So they're there for each other, just comforting. And, what a great example to the human soul here, whether we're adults or kids, is to, really be there for each other.
Well, I want to emphasize, these are children who have not necessarily just lost a parent. It might be a sibling. It might be some other close relative, correct?
Yeah, it could definitely be, a grandparent, an aunt and uncle, a sibling, a parent, either parent. Sometimes it's multiples. I've had kids that have had loss so great, 4 or 5 people just coincidentally, a teacher, a neighbor, those kinds of things that just add up to it. So, look, we don't have any problem filling the camps. It's more about sustaining what we're doing and adding more sessions.
Now, explain, just if you would, share with us if people know, because I would think, again, if I'm a child, a 5 or 6-year-old, 8-year-old, I don't even think that there might be this resource out there. Or even what do you recommend if someone knows a child? Is this what can we do to be proactive out in the community if we know a family that's had a loss? What kinds of things, tools can we do to help address that? Is it particularly if a child has lost a parent, and maybe there may not be another parent in the household? Where do we start? Do we go to the schools, or what do we contact your organization, or?
You contact Carla's organization for sure, because they're going to have lots of different programs. I assume, Carla, I don't know too much about what you do, but you would help the parents or the survivors, the children in different group settings. If not, they have the resources in your community. The Moyer Foundation has posted on their website, so moyerfoundation.org, the National Resource Guide for everyone and anyone in America who is suffering a loss. So we can help find different kinds of grief groups, connect you with one of our camps. So it's very proactive.
And one thing, we're about 2 minutes away from the break here, Karen, and I respect and appreciate that you're on the you're using up your cell minutes probably talking to us.
No, I'm good.
You're good? Okay, well,
yeah.
I want to hear some kids scream and yell in the background there. I tell you what, sometimes, in fact, I was just thinking the other day, I need to go out to a dollar store somewhere and just buy some plates that I can throw to break. And that method of expression is something that you use.
On the ESPN thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in our camp in St. Louis. Isn't that powerful? Like, even when you're watching the video of kids, they're about, 50 feet away from a wall, and they take a plate and they just whale it on this wall, and you hear the crash. It's almost like your skin jumps. But then there's a sense of relief. So a great stress relief, for sure. Nothing I would recommend at home, certainly more at the camp setting.
Yeah, yeah. These are professionals. Don't do this at home, folks.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, the other thing, you're there at the last day of the camp there in Orange County?
Right.
These camps, how long do they last? Is it a couple of days? Is it a week, or does it vary across the country?
They're weekend camps. The kids all come on Friday, and they leave, after lunch on Sunday.
Okay. Now, I'll tell you, if you can stick with us through the break, Karen, one thing I definitely want to talk about, again, the powerful image. In grieving, you've got to start the grieving process. And I don't know if you ever get over it, but there is a certain amount of closure involved. And I tell you, the luminarios, as we call it down here in Tucson, but the luminaries, the candle, to me, that's just another real powerful image that goes along with this. Folks, this is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia, here on Daily Mail. We're joined by Karen Moyer, who is the founder of the Moyer Foundation, and also by Carla Velasquez with Tu Nidito. Yeah. Here, see, I did that pretty good, huh? Yeah. Here in Tucson. If you have a question or comment, feel free to give us a call. The lines are open, 751-1041. Very, very powerful story that affects all of us. Stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back. Welcome back, folks. This is your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia, here on Daily Mail. We're joined live in the studio with Carla Velasquez, who's with Tu Nidito, Children and Family Services. Is that right? Wow. Okay. Good thing it's my second language. I get tongue-tied. And also joining us on the phone from an undisclosed location in Orange County, Karen Moyer, who is the founder of the Moyer Foundation, which is the group that principally funds Camp Aaron. And Karen, back to you. We talked just for the break. I was made aware of your organization by my executive assistant producer, Laura, who said, look, you have got to see this. She saw the documentary, and she knew what I was going through in my personal life, and I'm not a kid, but it's still a challenge. But she was talking about the documentary. Now, you alluded to earlier in the program that was when you were first approached by HBO or the folks doing the documentary. You were kind of iffy about this.
Well, I was. These kids are my kids, and I want to protect them, and what they're going through is very difficult. And so what happens in our documentary is you get a set of triplets who are comforted through camp. They're teens by losing, they had lost their dad to cancer, and it was a long battle. And you just see the transformation in them throughout the weekend. They were not that excited to go to camp in the first place. And I've seen the kids recently, and they're really doing well. And then you've got little Nicole, who lost her mama to homicide, and now her dad, who's a single dad now, has to figure out how to raise her. And just the transformation of them as a dad and a daughter, and what he comes, picks her up, and that scene is so beautiful. He wants to help her, and he asks her if she's hungry or thirsty, and she's like, nope, I'm good, Dad. So he probably saw his little girl grow up right before his eyes in a weekend. And then the story that happens over and over and over, and this is of death by suicide, and it's a brother and a sister who lose their dad, and they're confused. And one thing you don't know in the film by watching it is that the daughter, Aubrey, had tried and successfully 6 months prior stopped Dad from an attempt. So her pain is so excruciating. Wow. And the confusion and just even understanding what the word suicide means and the stigma around it. So their transformation, we've had people across America falling in love with Aubrey. She's touched many lives because of her transformation from like her face covered with her hair in some of the scenes at camp to her jumping in the pool and being really happy and jovial. Now,
Karen, the death, I just from my personal experience, I mean, it was a significant change in my own life, and it's a time of introspection, but it seems like all of the human emotions are brought to bear when it comes to death, and I would think particularly for young people, there's maybe feelings of guilt, there's definitely anger, there's sorrow. They don't know. Have you seen over the years through Camp Aaron if there was, I mean, clearly there's some commonality in those emotions and how you deal with them, but have you noticed any differences in the children depending on how the loss took place? You talked a little bit about the situation with the parent who committed suicide.
I think kids are very different than adults. I've been at camps where kids will say, my dad was shot by a gun. My mom took too many pills. Just they get angry at cancer and illness. A good percentage of our kids lose loved ones to cancer. We do have a very high percentage that lose loved ones to suicide as well. And it's not about the how at Camp Aaron. The only way that the how is important, and they may not even understand it, is on Friday night when we do our memory board, and little Susie gets up and says, I lost my dad to suicide, and then 10 kids later, another kid gets up, little Bobby, and says, I lost my mom to suicide. Then that normalizes what would be a very difficult loss. I'm sure Carla can express that too. And deepens the normalization, so to speak, in quotes, big quotes, for a child suffering a loss of such. Don't you think, Carla?
Definitely. And we saw that last year at our camp as well.
Now, how many camps has Tunidito been involved with, as far as here in Arizona?
Our contract just started last year. So last year was our first camp that Tunidito was actually the partner, and we're the one who hosted. Now,
Karen, I assume, obviously there's professionals involved, grief, psychological professionals. Yeah, I don't take that wrong. But is there a sort of over the years, if you do this, is there sort of a best practices? Have you seen things that work here and then that's transferred to another camp, or is it all sort of standardized? Here's the types of things. Clearly there's little things that are a little bit different. And I want to talk about the Luminarios again, because there may be a camp where they're actually on a river versus a pool or something like that.
Yes, so there's a Camp Aaron model, and each camp has expectations on them via the Moyer Foundation, pre-camp and post-camp. Definitely the memory board and the luminaries are pieces that are across the country. And, for example, today we're in Orange County, and there was another Camp Aaron all the way down in Atlanta this weekend. And so I love that when you can just feel the force of camp from, actually it was Orange County, Atlanta, Miami and Philadelphia this weekend. So pretty special to just feel that love and know that Aaron's looking down over all these kids. The luminaries is really powerful. They were very creative here because we have all this fire issue right now in Orange County, but they did cans and put some fake lights in them, and then they were outside and spelled out the word hope with all of these cans, and actually the kids get to take the cans home. Typically, though, they have decorated a candle holder of some sort, something that could possibly float in a pool or in a body of water. They come around, they've decorated it honoring their loved one. They come around in a line, and we light the candle and then stick it in the body of water like you've seen in our documentaries. So it's pretty powerful. There's a lot of crying, a lot of hugging, a lot of silence. And I think, Carla, that's what you guys teach me all the time is sometimes it's just best to be quiet.
Yes, definitely.
As Carla sits here and is quiet.
Yeah.
Right. But that action of the I keep wanting to say luminarios, of the luminaries, that there's a certain closure to that. It's a letting go, and at least that's what I took from the image of that, the candle being placed in a body of water and move, being pushed out into the pool or moving on down. I mean, is that Karen or Carla? Is that kind of your sense of?
I definitely saw it as a chance for these kids to say goodbye. A lot of them didn't get to say that. A lot of them, with these deaths that were really traumatic, this was the first time they really got to say something. And it was a special time where everyone was, nice and silent. And it was just that special time where they had, and they released these luminaries. And you can just see the feeling behind it and how much it meant to them to really see it float and how special that is.
Karen, anything to add to that?
Absolutely. I think that Carla's dead on in the sense that a lot of them didn't get to say goodbye, so they'll have messages with that. And again, it sort of normalizes if, you're hearing mom over and over, dad. And I think, too, I've witnessed some pretty amazing, beautiful scenes in these luminaries where they've been on a body of water and say a brother and sister set them out separately, different age groups, different genders. And in the morning, those two candles were next to each other on the shoreline.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, and then last year, when we were filming, it was 2 years ago, filming at the LA camp for the HBO doc, there was a boy who lost his dad to an aneurysm, and he really was struggling, kind of behavior issues, the first 24 hours. And then at the luminary scene, all the candles were, the current in the pool was taking them all to one corner, but his candle came over by where we were sitting on the opposite side of the pool by him. And then we took it out and put it back in, and the same thing happened again. And so that was an amazing opportunity for us to say, look, Dad's looking down on you. He's going to protect you. And the courage and the self-esteem and self-confidence that he got out of that, the next hour, while always at Camp Aaron's there's some sad things, there's always a way more ton of fun things. And they did like a campfire thing after where they did skits and such. And he ended up being like the MC and the leader. So he's gone from like this bad behavior kid to leading within 24, 36 hours. And all because of, something that happened to him at Camp Aaron. So it was very cool, and I hope that he's continuing with those skills.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful stuff. Hey, folks, if you'd like to get involved or find out more, you can visit MoyerFoundation.org. That's MOYER. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with one more segment with Karen Moyer, the founder of the Moyer Foundation, and Carla Velasquez with Turinito here in Tucson. We're talking about child grief, and frankly, an issue all of us will have to deal with. Stick around, folks. Wow. Folks, this has been a heavy subject, but Silent Jim knows how to make me feel better playing Sidewinders music. I love this song. Hey, folks, it's your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia. We're back on Daily Mail. We're joined on the phone by Karen Moyer, the founder of the Moyer Foundation, and in the studio by Carla Velasquez, who's with Tudinito. And we're talking about Camp Aaron, which is the nation's largest network of bereavement camps for children and teens. Very, very powerful subject. It was the subject of an HBO documentary, One Last Hug, recently. Carla, let's start coming back to you because, folks, we talked about the numbers nationwide, but clearly there's a need here locally. And folks, I hope I won't even say if, get involved. Visit themoyerfoundation.org or visit Tudinito. Everybody can do something to help out with this issue because it affects all of us. But Carla, tell us a little bit more details about the next camp that's available for folks from Southern Arizona.
Yeah, this year our camp is being held October 17th through the 19th here in Tucson. We will be using Camp Triangle Y Ranch Camp in Oracle, Arizona. So we'll be bringing kids from both Phoenix and Tucson. We will be providing bus transportation to camp. And then just like Karen was sharing how the parents go or adults go on Sunday after the camp is over to really pick them up. And we didn't do that last year, and that's something that I got to witness at Camp Aaron, LA, when I went last year as kind of my first time as a volunteer. And it was an amazing thing to really see the adults come in, and they really feel a lot more involved. They get to see the face, the expression these kids have and how happy they are after camp. Mm-hmm. So I really wanted to bring that to camp this year. So it is October 17th through the 19th, and to sign up, you can easily find the registration on our website. That's tunidito.org/Camp Aaron, and all the information, even to volunteers, on the website. Now,
thanks so much to Karen and her husband. I want to emphasize these camps are free.
Yes.
Right? There is no fee associated with it. You're providing this as a service to these young people and their families.
Definitely.
And now, is there a qualification, first 70 that come, or how do you actually handle the logistics of that?
It is first come, first serve, and that's something that's definitely advertised. I know last year we hit 70 campers, and I really feel like this year we're going to have a wait list of kids.
Two ways that people can help. One, obviously, please, folks, make a donation.
Definitely.
Support. Can I go and sponsor a child? And if so, what is that?
Yes, and you can do that specifically on our site. You can even designate the funds to a particular camp, and it's $500 to sponsor a child for a weekend.
Definitely.
I tell you what, that sounds like a great investment, and that's not all that much money. To create the kind of transformative change that we're seeing you all are doing with these young people, I mean, wow, I hate to talk of it in terms of value, but I mean, it's not very often you can change someone's life for $500.
Well, and truthfully, it can be life-saving. Some of the statistics of these kids increase greatly around mental issues, mental health, and suicide, addiction, just flat-out relationship issues. We've all met people. If 85% of our guys on death row have lost parents, that's pretty powerful. And then even most of the kids in juvie have lost a parent. So, that's where it starts, and it's really important to support, give it conversation, and to know that there's resources out there.
Now, Karen, let's start with you. Our guests on just the previous program today, American Warrior, were the folks from the That Others May Live Foundation, which is a foundation specifically formed to support the children of Special Rescue, Air Force rescue personnel who've lost their lives in the line of duty. There's no distinction, I would think, as far as military families go, but...
No, in fact, we outreach for that. We have specific camps that people have scholarships, particularly for military kids. We serve military kids in both of our camps, and we're very proud of that. We incorporate a hero piece that these kids, in front of their peers at the camp, understand that their loved one was a hero. So absolutely, that is part of what we do.
Now, we talked about, you can sponsor kids, you can just make a direct donation, but do you also accept volunteers? Is this sort of a big brothers, big sisters situation where if I'm someone who just really cares, can I volunteer to come out and just help out, build a campfire, do whatever I can to help out?
And you should. You absolutely should, right, Carla? I don't know
Definitely.
if you're looking for volunteers now. There's a bit of training, but, a lot of our counselors have lost loved ones, and they continue to heal by healing others.
And I personally, as I mentioned when we started this show, just in my personal life, that's something I've been struggling with, and frankly, I do take inspiration, and it's pretty tempting, Carla. I know I can. It's
Come on, Ben.
Lifelong learning, but Karen, you mentioned something that I found intriguing when you talk about the impacts of not addressing it. It's kind of like having a cavity and not doing something about it, and next thing you know, you're getting a root canal. One of my good friends, when my mother passed, again, I don't know if you caught that at the beginning of the show, but he took me aside and looked me in the eye and said, look, when my dad died, I didn't deal with it. And literally 5 years later, he had a breakdown. And the importance of however you start your mourning process, it's something you have to deal with. And I just found it intriguing that you talk about what the impacts down the line might be.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's tons of statistics around it, and it's just really important. It's a tough thing for anybody to go through. It's one of the toughest, most stressful things you can go through. Carla might have more to say.
Yeah, that's it's live radio, Carla. Yeah,
definitely.
Locally, do you see that? As far as you've only been doing it for a little while, so it's kind of hard to project down the line. But you've seen the transformation in the kids.
Oh yeah.
Karen talked about the young man who just gained so much confidence over the course of 2 days after having released this burden.
Definitely. And I know last year a really cute story was with our teens. I feel like it's the hardest kind of population to really target. You know, they think about a camp and it's just for little kids. But last year, our largest cabin, or our older kids' cabin, were 16-year-old boys. And they kind of get there just like all the other kids. They don't really want to be there. But it was a beautiful thing to see at the end of camp on Sunday, all the cabins kind of put together a skit. And their skit was just the best so far. They kind of just, pretended to be on the first day of camp, and they kind of talked to each other like, oh, I hate being here. They kind of made me come. And then they kind of, put up a little sign saying, okay, 20 years later, and these kids are friends, and they're hanging out, and they're watching football. And they start talking about what a difference Camp Aaron made to them. And, thank goodness for Camp Aaron, because they were able to really build those relationships and work through their grief and not really ignore it, because it might be a little harder for a teen to really express that.
Now, Karen, do you have a system yet? Do you check back in with the campers over the course of time? Do you stay in communication?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Well, they do, and then we do through the partners. And now we've got some research and tracking being done for a several-year study with Kent State. And so, we're definitely on top of it, wanting to know how well everybody's doing.
And can you share with us, are there any conclusions from that data yet as far as maybe projecting down the line things you may want to add to Camp Aaron?
It can be. No, not necessarily. I think it can be, telltaling in a weekend or in a couple of years. I've had parents tell me, you've given my child back, and others that have said you've saved my life, and then some of our campers come back as counselors, and that's what I was encouraging these teens today to do. Some write, thesis papers on them, get into college with that essay. It's powerful, and just to know that, you acknowledge someone's loss, you tell them that you're, so sorry, and that can go a really long ways when you don't know what to say. And then just, like I said, just be a really good listener. That can be the most effective way to be.
Now, Karen, in one of the pieces on the website, MoyerFoundation.org, I think it was you and this quote really stuck with me. It's supposed to be hard. This is not. This process is not an easy process, and my concern is so many people out there, whether they're the parent or the young person, there's a certain avoidance that I think crops up, and the idea, well, there's a just add water solution to what I'm feeling, and there's not, is there?
Well, no, certainly everyone grieves differently. Timing is very different, and while you could say there's the stages of grieving, it's just everybody's different, and so there's no judgment. Everybody's comfortable at Camp Aaron. If someone can't get through a sentence because they're so emotional, someone will go over and give them a hug. And I just think that's just a standard way of living if we can just be that way and not be judgmental. We're all human. It's supposed to be hard. Are you kidding? You've lost a loved one, and it can be hard today or not, and it can be hard tomorrow or not. And you just have to know there's certain things that trigger it, and you have to, it's okay to be sad. It's okay to cry, and it's just going too far into that sorrow that becomes a little more difficult, wouldn't you say, Carla?
Yeah, and we see that even in our support groups. I mean, these kids, it's really working through those feelings and working through that grief. There's really no way around it.
Karen, we're coming up on just 2 minutes in the show here. Anything else you'd like to add to our listeners?
Well, I think what's important is for people to understand that there are wonderful organizations out there like the one you have in Tucson that's going to run our camp, Tunidito, right?
Yes.
Yes. And then, resources everywhere, and that these camps exist, that they are free. There's time, talent, treasure of some kind that some one of your listeners can reach back and, pay it forward kind of thing. Come be a volunteer. Know when you're watching the news tonight that there's these camps that exist. So thank you for your time, and check out MoyerFoundation.org.
Hey, Karen, thank you to you and Jamie for everything you've done for these young people. Carla, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Again, the MoyerFoundation.org, or you can visit Tunidito.org. This has been your host, Ben Buehler-Garcia, folks. If you listen to this show, obviously. What a powerful thing. You can share this. Tell your friends to visit 1041kqth.com. They can go to the Daily Mail American Warrior link and listen to a podcast of this show and other shows. Thanks for tuning in today, folks. Karen, Carla, thank you so much. We'll see you all next week beginning at noon on American Warrior, 1 o'clock for Daily Mail.